I had been in Puno, Peru, on the shores of Lake Titicaca, and I was heading south to Arequipa to return to my base in Lima. But the train didn't run that day. But I arranged to travel by an autocarril, which is an automobile with train wheels. And so I traveled against the traffic uh, toward Arequipa. And we had to stop at one particular place where we could pull off while the train went the other way, because the train always alternated directions. But going down that particular trip, I had visited a village that needed help with putting the roof on a school. If they could get the roof on the school, the government would assign a teacher. So I personally paid for $180 to put the roof on the school. And then about a week later, I provided a deep well pump for a village that if they dig the well down to potable water, it would pump the water up. And it was all very, very satisfying experience, but I realized quickly that I couldn't keep doing that out of my own pocket. So I began to contact groups in Texas, my home state, and I got schools that would help put roofs on other schools, other kinds of projects that would be helpful, and we helped build a trail into a farm-to-market road with the help of a jackhammer that I got the Jaycees in one community in Texas to pay for, and it began to develop. Then I had a nice visit with Bill Rogers, who was then the man in charge of all of the legal operations for the Alliance for Progress. I told him of my idea of matching up Texas with Peru, perhaps Utah with the Altiplano part of Bolivia, Arkansas with the lower part, Ecuador with Idaho. And he liked the idea, and he took it back to Washington. And then President Kennedy approved it. And so on September the 13th, prior to the president's assassination on November 22nd, he approved the idea of developing the Partners Program. And so I began moving just as rapidly as I could, because knowing the bureaucracy in Washington, I wanted to make tracks before people tried to slow me down. One of my purposes was to help teach the people in the United States about Latin America. They didn't know much about Latin America, but if I could get them to become involved in a two-way activity and to exchange trips back and forth, they would help in an educational way of teaching the people of this country about that part of the world. And I felt that was extremely important. And that was the concept of the partners. I would match them at first on certain geographic similarities. For example, I had Utah working with the Altiplano of Bolivia. They were very similar. Texas working with Peru, because there was a lot of similarities there. Ecuador with Idaho, similar. So I began to do that at first. And then I began to match them up in other ways. I would usually go to a senator or maybe a governor of a state and say, there's interest in your state participating in this program. We would like to arrange a no-commitment meeting where we can discuss the idea and the concept with some of your leaders and get them to participate. Sometimes the governor would open the meeting and turn it over to me. But I would also request that people be there at that meeting, representing agriculture, representing the rural electric co-ops, representing all different kinds of groups of the state. So by the time I had the group pulled together for my presentation, I would have 25 or 30 people that represented the power structure of the private sector of that state. Then I said, I'll send you and pay for sending 5 of you as a member of a program development team to visit your partner area. I would bring them through Washington, have them meet with their congressional delegation and then go south. I would, in the meantime, have been in Latin America saying, we need your help. We need help with your language, with your literature, with your music, your culture. And we can help you with certain things, but we need you to help us back to learn about Latin America. So I would organize a receiving committee that they would meet together. They would travel through that area of Latin America and see the things that needed to be done. When a team of 5 would go to spend 2 weeks, say in case of Peru, they would spend the night, 2 nights before they left to return back home, in a program development meeting. I called it that purposely, because their purpose was to develop a program, to come up with activities and things that they could see that they could do. I knew that the last night before their departure would be a social party. So we had our program development night the second night before they left. And then at that time they would identify things specifically that they could do. Then they would return, contact the various organizations that could assist, and see that it took place. And then we would send a team of 5 from the Latin American area back to their partner state. I did this for a purpose, because when people are working as volunteers, they would tend to get very active, but then the activity would tend to slope downwards. But if they had a group coming up, they would get busy so they could have more good things to report to that team. And the Latin American team would come up to see what they could do to be of help with respect to language and artwork and other things. And so we kept these movements back and forth. The key to it was making it a two-way flow, so that the people that were helping, the ones in Latin America, would receive something back. So that when a community in Texas would help one of the villages in Peru with some particular project, the Peruvians then would send artwork or audio tapes of music and of language that could be used in Spanish language classes, so they could participate, be participantes, and so they did. They became a partners program. I traveled all over the country, and I traveled into Latin America. It was a very, very hectic period of time for me, but a very satisfying period. So we developed, before I was through, 41 partnerships, but they were all good. They were all unique because each partnership was different. Each area's needs were different. Each area's interests were different.